Let's learn how to upload files in PowerApps V2 style. So today we're going to learn how to upload a single file and upload a multiple file, all using the new Power Automate V2 trigger. Right? That V2 trigger now has a file attachment way. So I thought we should learn how to use that. That means no more of that crazy base 64. And if you're wondering, like, yeah, I made this video 4 years ago using the V1 trigger. I was the person that discovered how to upload files with all the shenanigans that went into that. Well, thank goodness the shenanigans are gone. It's pretty straightforward now. So let's just jump over to my desktop and take a look. So first, let's kind of show you what we're going to build. So the first thing we want to do is just a simple upload. So we're going to click on the little upload icon here. We can choose any of these adorable pictures of Buddy. How about this Buddy eating? We'll say open. And then you can see that the process through and it's like upload complete. Awesome. Say okay. Now, what if we want to upload multiple files? No big deal. All we're going to do is open up a folder. All right, we'll click over here. We'll grab some Buddy pictures. So we'll grab 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, Buddy by the Christmas tree, right? Whatever. All right. So we're going to grab all those. We're just going to drag them. As we start to drag, you can see it says drop your files here. We're going to drop the 5 files. Now, when we do, that gets them loaded. And then the upload all button lights up. And then we're going to say upload all. And then once again, we're going to get the spinner. And so this is to keep the users from clicking while they need to wait, because if you're uploading a lot of files, it might take several seconds. When it's done, we get upgrade complete. Okay. So that's what we're going to go through today, how to do this. All right, so let's close this. Let's jump over here. Let's make ourselves a new screen. So the first secret to uploading files, just like it always has been, is you need an attachment control. Now, the attachment control, unfortunately, does not show up in the insert menu. So the only way to get one of these is to add a data source that has attachments. So I'm going to say add data, and we're going to do SharePoints, right? You could also do a Dataverse table that had attachments, but I always use SharePoint. So we're going to do SharePoint, and then we'll grab PowerApps videos, and you can grab any SharePoint list, right? Like it does not matter what SharePoint list you get. So we're just going to grab my employees, but it doesn't matter. And you're going to see in just a second, we're even going to get rid of it. So then here you're going to say insert, and you're going to insert yourself a form. Now, when you add the form, you are then going to set the data source to that SharePoint list. When you do this, this will typically add all the columns. One of those will be the attachment column. So if we scroll down here at the bottom, there's the attachment. Right? So if we switch to the view here, you can see that what that has done is that gives us this little card with a little paper clip here, right? So we are going to rename this thing. And so we'll call this attach control. And then we're going to grab it. So we're going to say Control X, and then we're going to say Control V, and paste it outside the form, right? It's angry, but that's okay. Now, right now, you can go ahead and delete the form, and you can go ahead and delete the data source, right? So remove all that. So that SharePoint list is gone. We just needed it for just a couple of seconds. Okay, now we'll say back over here. And so this is a little angry. So all you're gonna do is hit the drop down here and say edit in the formula bar. So look, the border color, it's mad. That's great. We'll just make the color .black, right? We don't care what color the border is. Okay, hit the drop down again. Oh, items. I don't need any items. So delete that. Still mad. We'll hit the drop down. Display name. Nope, don't care about any of that. And then edit in the formula bar again. Oh, display mode. You do care about this one. So you're going to need to set this to display mode.edit so they can interact. And so we're just changing those 4 things real quick. The errors went away and the app is useful. All right. So one of the great reasons we like to use this control is you hit play and you say attach file. Now you can choose pictures, but we could also just go here to my desktop, right? I can choose Excel files, PDFs, Word documents. The attachment control is really great that way, that it lets you attach, see down here, all files. If you'd been like, well, Shane, why didn't you just use the add picture thing, right? So if you go to media and then you go down here and say add picture, this lets you attach things. But when we say play and click on this, what is going to happen is, look, it only defaults to images. And so when I go to my desktop, I'm like, why don't I see my PDFs in my Excel, right? Like, do you want to explain to your users where their things are and teach them if they click this and say all files, then they could see it. Your users aren't going to get that, right? So don't bother with this. Go through that little extra getting the attachment controls, right? So we're going to delete that. We're also going to be really annoyed that PowerApps has this bug right now. When you come back, you have to like resize the screen. So now that we've got this attached, let's attach a file. So I'll just hit the Alt key, then I'll bring it up. We'll grab another picture of Buddy. So now to go from PowerApps files attached in PowerApp, I need to get it saved to my data source. In this case, we're going to do SharePoint, but it'd be very similar if you're using a different data source. What we're going to do is we're going to need to build ourselves a Power Automate cloud flow. So click over here on flow, and then we're going to say add a flow. We're going to say create a new flow. After a few seconds, this interface loads and you're going to say create a flow, right? We don't want any of the templates or any of that. We're just going to say create a flow. And the nice thing here is it's going to let us build the flow inside the app instead of like having two different windows open and switching back and forth. Now notice here it adds the PowerApps v2 trigger. So this is what is brand new. This is what's causing me to remake this video. When you go here, you can add an input. Now, if you've seen the old video and you really want to do it the way we did in the old video, I'll put a link up there just in case you do, then you could just use text here and then you could follow those same exact steps, right? Because in the old way, that's what we were doing. We just passed text and we manipulated it. But now we've got this file option. So the file option, if we choose this, this is going to give us a file. I'm going to call it my file because I like to rename these things. And that's all we need, right? So we're just going to say, hey, I need a my file. New step, you're only going to need one action. And so for that, we're going to search for SharePoint. And then under SharePoint, we're going to find create file somewhere in here. There it is, create file. Okay. So you do create file. Now I also notice that because I've started the Power App this way, it is using the old designer. If you're doing this in the new designer, it just looks different, but all the steps be exactly the same. So then now where do you want to upload it to? So we're going to upload it to my site called PowerApps Videos right here. And then for the folder path, I'm going to choose where I want to put that. And so it's pretty smart. I want to put it in shared documents. Now I can either click shared documents and do shared documents directly, or if you hit this, you could choose a specific folder to put it in, right? We're just going to put it in the row of shared documents right now though. So put it in the shared documents, wherever they went, there they go. And then finally for file name here, now this is where it's a little confusing in this old interface, right? Like it's like, hey, my file, what goes there? And file content, same type of thing. Because if we add this here, right, let's just add it right here. If you hover, read the thing. So that is trigger body file content bytes. That's good. That's what we want for file content. You're gonna see in a minute. That's what we're going to pass as the file. So that would work. If we go up here to file name and drag or add this, if you hover, now it's that same thing, right? We don't want that. We need the file name. So in this particular interface, what I'm gonna have to do is click in here, say copy, X out of there, and then do expression, and then paste it back in. Get rid of the curly bracket at the end, go to the front, get rid of the at and the curly bracket there. So now it's trigger body, file, and then content bytes. And we don't want content bytes because that's the X's and the O's of the file. We want name. So you're going to change it to name, make sure that it's all lowercase just like that. All right. And say, okay. So that's it, right? That is exactly what you want to do. You know what? We're going to pause for a second. And I want to just go, we're going to go show you what this would have looked like if we were using the V2 editor, right? So to get to the V2 editor, I would have opened a new window. And so over in Power Automate, right, we would have said create, and then we would have done an instant flow. We would have chosen PowerApps V2 the trigger, say create. Don't click too fast, give it a second to finish loading. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click in here. We're going to add an input and add a file just the same way we did before, right? And we'll call this one FC. And then we'll go here. We're going to add an action. We're going to add the same SharePoint action again. We'll say see more here. And then we will say create file wherever that is right there. And so what I want you to see is that here, when you go to file name and then you do dynamic content, it says, hey, I know about the name and the bytes, right? So this interface does a better job with this trigger. So we'd put FC name there, and then we would do the same dynamic content and FC content bytes here. Then you would just save this and you could use it the same way. So this, if you build it directly in Power Automate, you're going to use the new designer and it's a little bit easier. But if you hover, like look, trigger body file name, that's the thing that we just did. We did that ourselves over there, right? We hover over this one, it's trigger file content bytes. So either way is fine. You do you. I don't care. We're going to stick to doing it over there in the other interface, but I just want you to see that this interface does behave a little bit differently because I'm guessing somewhere over time, they're going to change it. All right, let's switch back over. Okay, so either way you do it, we're good, right? We got to give this thing a name. So we're going to call this video upload because I'm really creative. And then we're going to click on save over here. All right, now it's loading. So as soon as you hit save, it just automatically closes that window and it starts loading it over here. As soon as it's done loading, right? So video uploads the one we just made. All we need to do here is we're going to go right here, or I guess we'll go to this, and we can say, hey, attachment control on add file, wherever that is. Geez, oh Pete's way down here. We're going to say on add file, we want to video upload.run. That's the name of our flow. And now it says, hey, I need a record, file record like this, okay? Pay attention to this format because it is important to understand, right? So you're going to have a curly bracket file, colon. You're gonna have another curly bracket inside here, right? Like it doesn't tell you this part, unfortunately. And then you're gonna say content bytes. And so then what we want here, this is where the file now goes. And so what we want to do is we want to get the file from the attachment control. So since we're referencing ourself, we're going to say self, and then we're going to say self.attachments. That is the table of all the attachments. We don't want all of them. We want just a record. So we're going to say last. So give me the last file that was attached. There'll only be one, but you still have to tell it which one you want. And so then we're going to do a dot and dot value. That is the physical file that is attached in there. Then you're going to do a comma, and you're going to do name, all lowercase again, and then you're going to do a colon here, and then you're going to do last self.attachments. And this time it's .name, and notice that this name is capital, right? Like sometimes they just like to torture us, I think. But whatever it is, now we need to close our files record, and then we need to close the record, and then we need to close our parentheses, right? Now, if you can't memorize all that, right, just pause, take a screenshot real quick, right? It's not all that crazy, right? Or if you screw it up, right? Like, so let's say that I wasn't paying attention. I made the B too small. If you screw it up, if you hover, it's going to tell you your formula is missing a column, file.content bytes. See the lowercase c, the uppercase B. And so that would then jog my memory to be like, oh, mine doesn't look like that. Let me change it to an uppercase B. And we've got that, right? So I've learned my lesson after 4 years, right? Like we want to make sure that we're giving you guys some of the common mistakes that I see you making and how to resolve them. But now that we've done that, now the way that this thing will work is if we play, we're just going to X out of this file. We're going to attach a file. And because we put that code on add file, if we grab this picture of my wife and dog and we say open, as soon as we do it, you saw my son, the dots going across the top of the screen, it uploaded the file. And we can go check that by jumping over to SharePoint. So we'll say, here's my SharePoint, right? And then we'll do an F5 for a refresh, scroll down, and look, there's Buddy going home a few seconds ago. And remember, when you're uploading files, always make sure that it actually worked. So we're going to click on the file just to see how adorable they look. Oh, like that was literally the first day we got Buddy. Maybe the second. No, that was the first day. Cause yeah, we're at PetSmart buying him dog food. So there you go. Okay. So that works exactly the way we wanted. All right. So let's switch back over to our app. Okay. So that's it, right? That uploads a file. You're done. Now, if you wanted to, add some nicety to it. So let's go over here real quick and talk about how the single upload, how I did it on the fancy demo screen. Okay, so if you look, so I've got a circle icon here, I got an icon here, right? Neither of them actually do anything, right? Like there's code in there, there shouldn't be. That code doesn't do anything. What I then did was I took that attachment control that we just built and it is sitting on top of it. I turned that attachment control and I set all of its settings, every setting that it's got to be transparent. So that way you don't ever see it. But in reality, you're not clicking this or that. When you click here, you're actually clicking the attachment control. It's just secretly there, right? Look, if I change the color of the font back to black, you would see that it is sitting right there. So when you come into the app, you're actually interacting with it and you just didn't realize it, right? Because unfortunately, there's no way to attach or trigger the attachment control without it. So I just found that by making it invisible, then that was the way to, and then putting an icon there the user would understand makes it work pretty well. Now, if we then look at the attachment control, on add file here is where I put all the code. So there's on add file. And so here what we're going to do is we're going to set a variable called var show loading or show uploading to true and then say set var show done to false. We're then going to upload our file, right? That's the same syntax that we just talked about. We're then going to reset self because I don't want it to start piling up files. I just want to, as soon as it gets it uploaded, reset it. And then it's going to set the variable var show done to true. So what happens is the container that covered the whole screen, right, let's just throw a button on the screen so we can kind of manually trigger this thing. Oh, I didn't mean to do that though. Control Z, go right here. All right, insert a button again. Okay, so if we go to this button and we say update context, var show uploading to true. So if we press this button, you can see that what happens here is our container gets lit up. Inside the container is the container white box. The reason I did that is I wanted to go with that two-dimensional, so I'm using the drop shadow. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. And so inside that container then, we have the spinning GIF. So let's go back to here and let's set this to say var show done to false. Okay, so when it sets the variable to false, so this image GIF, it's just an image, a loading file I got from loading.io that spins. And so that's in a image control. And so its visible property is only to be visible when var show done is not true. So then when var show done gets finished, then that label and the button to clear it out show up, right? So if we change this back to true and press the button, now upload complete and whatever shows up. And then the OK button just sets the variables back to false, so it all goes away. Okay, so that's how I'm doing that, right? I'm setting the variable show uploading true, that makes the spinner show up by setting this to true and that to false. When it's done, it then sets var show done to true, which is what makes the text show up. Now, if you're thinking, whoa, I want to like download this, right? I wish I could just get this whole app. If you go to training.powerapps911.com and subscribe to our resource library, then you have the ability to download this and all my other apps, rewatch things. It's a great time. Sign up for office hours and you can have a monthly meeting with me this Wednesday, right? Is the next meeting, 12/13. We have one once a month. We'll have two once a month so that people can come and ask their questions. So that could be you. So that's how the single upload worked in this screen, right? It's just a fancier, prettier version of what you saw here. Now, what if I want to do multi-upload? So multi-upload, let's just copy this and paste it. Multi-upload in that whole drag and drop. It turns out that this control does drag and drop and just no one ever realized it, right? Like if we say, let's go here, let's take rid of the on-add file stuff for a moment. Like we don't want any of that to run. But the way that this control is set up, if you just hit play and then open up a folder again, right? When I grab these two files and pull them over here, look, I didn't even configure anything. That just works by itself. You drop them, now those two files are sitting there. And so then in order to upload both of those files, we're going to use the same exact flow. So we're just added a button. And so in this button, all we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, for all, right? So for all loops through a table of stuff. The attachment controller, now called attach control 1, dot attachments is a table of stuff. So then I'm going to say do that as file. This is for my sanity. Anytime that I'm looping, I always do an as something so I can reference it directly. And now what do you want to do for each one of those files that are in there? What I want to do is I want to do our same exact flow, no different, right? And so it's just going to be that same file, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to say our content bytes again, like so. And then now it's going to be file dot, and look, there is our value. And then we'll go right here, and then instead of content bytes, we're going to do name in all lowercase, and it's going to be file dot name. Right, so that's the beauty of using that capital file. If not, I would have just put the word value and name here, which could have been a little confusing. So doing an as file right here lets me specify that as file. And I always do the all caps so I know it's something I made. File.value and file.name. Close our curly, close that. And so now, oh, one more close. Now, if we do this, now if we press that button, right? So buddy on couch and buddy on the trail, I don't even know, right? So we'll press this. Notice, right, we need to put that whole loading stuff in. We're not going to go how all that works today, but just, right, we've covered that in several other videos before. And so now if we switch back over to SharePoint, and look, buddy on couch and buddy on the trail. So both of those files were just uploaded. Boom, multi-upload, single upload. No shenanigans, no galleries, no base 64, none of the madness. This time around, it's really straightforward. The only thing that you just need to kind of keep in mind, right, is that you've got to get your syntax exactly right? Just if you're having a hard time, it is most likely because you've misspelled content bytes or you've misspelled this, or remember in our Power Automate flow, right? Like when we went in there, right? So we go to video upload and edit. Just be sure inside your flow here, right? So if we did my file, whatever you call it here, down here, you're going to have both of those. And if you hover, right, that one is trigger body file content bytes. And if you hover over this one, that's trigger body file name, right? Those are the mistakes that we're going to make. They're not hard. They're just little typos that sometimes, those that aren't attention detailed people might miss. There you go. There's V2 of how to upload a file in PowerApps. What'd you think? Did you like it? Leave me comments below. Would you like to see additional things when it comes to uploading? I'm game. Just tell me what it is, right? yeah, or if you just need help with this or any of your projects, you can always hit us up over at www.powerapps911.com, right? We do training, we do consulting, we do projects. We'll even hop on the phone with you for half an hour and just fix your problem and never talk to you again. We're pretty helpful like that. All right. With that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.